Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. On this channel, you can expect to hear about all things related to process heating, but sometimes the topics aren't technical, but most of the time they are, so thanks for joining. Hi, I'm Doyle Bishop with Tulsa Heaters Midstream. I want to talk to you today about heater efficiency. And so what does that mean? How does that impact you? Essentially, it distills down to, hey, I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on fuel. So how do I keep from spending a whole lot of money on fuel, or how do I minimize my fuel costs? Well, that gets back to efficiency. So obviously, you're trying to heat a process. You're trying to heat a fluid, and you want to use as little fuel as possible. So how does that work in practical terms? So let's just draw a little simple diagram of a heater, okay? Okay, and we'll put a burner on this end. There's a burner. And inside of this heater, there's coils, right? There's coils of pipe. And there's also a convection section in here that does something like this, and then goes in here to the radiant section. And then this is the stack here. Okay, so obviously with a burner, you gotta have fuel, you gotta have air. So there's air going in here, air, and then there's fuel going into this burner to make a flame. So this is what I call process. This is the fluid that we're trying to heat. Fluid is coming in here, and then it goes out here. So it comes in this heater, makes a bunch of passes, comes into this, what we call the radiant section of the heater. That's where the flame is. This is the convection section here. Convection section. And then it ultimately comes out, obviously hotter than it came in. So let's just put some pretend numbers up here. Let's say the fluid temperature coming in is 300 degrees. And then we need to heat it up to, let's say, 500 degrees. So we're obviously using fuel to do that. We're burning the fuel with air. And then the hot gases from this burning process go into the tube and heat the tube. So if you think about efficiency, the question you ask is, okay, where is my energy? Where is that heat going? Where does it go? Well, obviously the bulk of it is going to go into this coil in the convection section, or this coil in the radiant section, and heat that up. That's where you'd like for all of it to go if that was possible. Well, that's not possible. One reason is because, hey, I've got flue gas coming out of the stack that's hot, okay? And a typical temperature of a flue gas might be 600 degrees. So I've got hot gases coming out of this stack, so really I'm losing energy out of the stack. Another place that I lose energy is inside this heater. Of course, we have what's called refractory, which is like insulation, and so I lose a little bit through that. Not much, not almost inconsequential, like maybe 1% of the duty, 1% of the energy that's used in this fuel firing comes through the wall, because I'm going to insulate that, kind of like a Yeti in reverse. So really what it gets down to is, how do we get this temperature lower? Because we know if we want to increase the efficiency, this needs to be lower. One thing I failed to do is talk about, hey, what is the formula for efficiency? The formula, it's typically expressed as a percentage, and it's a ratio of the absorbed heat divided by the fired heat, or the gas, right? So it's that ratio, that essentially how much fuel you're putting in on a million BTUs basis versus how much energy I'm getting into this fluid. So you can see that, and I said this earlier, we need to get this temperature down. Now, one of the things that keep us from getting it down is hey, I've got 300 degree fluid coming in. So no matter what, I can't have this flue gas lower than 300, right? I have to have something higher than 300. So typically, a typical approach, probably the best you're going to do, is in the range of a 50-degree delta or difference, meaning that I can only go down to about 350 degrees in the flue gas if my incoming fluid is 300 degrees. So that's a limiting factor. The other thing is if I get too low here, I start having condensation on these tubes. Actually, you think of a can of Coke that's cold, the condensation that forms on the can of Coke, the same thing can happen on this hot tube. You're thinking, how is that possible? Well, when you burn fuel, you make a lot of water, not in liquid form, but in vapor form. And if it gets so this gas, this flue gas is super, super humid. If I get down to 140 degrees or so, then I'll have condensation. Now, one of the things is as long as this is 300, I can't get to 140. So really, the condensation issue is only relevant when I have a really low inlet temperature, let's say 100 degrees F. Then I've got condensation I've got to think about. So how do I get this down? One way is, hey, let's put more coil in. Let's put more pipe that absorbs the heat. So I could put more tubes in this convection section, more fins, more tubes. Obviously, the more I put in, the lower this goes. It's not unreasonable to get this down to 400 degrees. So the question is, I'm going to answer it for you, but the question is this a realistic temperature to get to if I've got 300 degrees coming in? The answer is yes. I said you can't go below 50 degrees delta, and this is 100 degrees delta, and that's good. So obviously, I still have some hot gas coming out. It's 400 degrees. I'm going to lose energy, but it's at that temperature. I can't do it exactly in my head, but I'm going to tell you that's somewhere approaching 90% efficient. So 90% is pretty doggone good. You're not spending a whole bunch of money on fuel, and you can tell your boss that, hey, I figured out how to get this down, minimize the cost, and we're going to do it with more tubes and get this flue gas temperature down. Hey, thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, hit like or subscribe to get more information about process heating and Tulsa Heaters Midstream.